Tuesday afternoon sticks in my memory. Just a few days before Thanksgiving, I was inching along the freeway, heading home from work, when my phone started buzzing. Mom, Marianne, was calling. I hit speaker mode since she often liked to chat, and I preferred keeping both hands on the wheel. Her voice filled the car, sharp and louder than usual. "Hannah, is that you?" "Yeah, Mom, it's me. What's going on?" I caught a shuffle on the other end, like she'd pulled the phone away, and then I could make out my cousin Tyler in the background, his voice faint but unmistakable. "Just tell her, Aunt Marianne. Before we continue, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from." My stomach clenched. That kind of let-in always meant trouble. Mom came back on the line, her tone clipped and controlled in that familiar way. "Hannah," she said, "your father and I have made a decision. You're not welcome at Thanksgiving until you apologize to Tyler." The words sank in slowly, not a calm talk, not disappointment, just banned from Thanksgiving. A total ban, just like that. And for what, exactly? The so-called offense was a minor spat a few weeks earlier, something meaningless about a twisted bit of family lore that Tyler had insisted on getting wrong. I'd brushed it off and forgotten it, but clearly they hadn't. Before I could even gather my thoughts, Tyler's voice rang out in the background, loud and smug. "She can have her Thanksgiving in the garage with the leftovers." Then came his laugh, deep, unbothered, and another chuckle nearby, someone else finding it hilarious. Mom stayed silent. I kept quiet too, staring at the endless line of brake lights ahead of me. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel, and my throat burned, dry and tight. It wasn't just what they said. It was the laughter that followed, that easy cruelty. That moment shifted something inside me. Not a sudden outburst, not fury, more like the slow, grinding movement of something old and heavy finally reaching its limit. I'd always been the calm one, the peacemaker, the one who swallowed every insult and moved on. But this time, something in me refused to bend. It felt deliberate, cold, even cruel. For the first time in years, I understood that staying silent wasn't a sign of strength. It only made me invisible, easy to wound, easy to dismiss. Mom kept talking, unaware of the stillness on my end. "Just think it over. If you plan to join us, you know what has to happen." "Okay, Mom," I finally answered, my voice dull and hollow. "I'll think about it." When I ended the call, the sudden quiet in the car pressed against my ears. Tyler's words looped in my head, leftovers in the garage, every syllable soaked in mockery. It wasn't about a single holiday anymore. It was about everything that had built up for years, and in that stalled line of traffic, something inside me settled with sharp finality. I was done. For so long, I'd been the family's quiet safety net, not because I flaunted money, but because I was careful, steady, and responsible. I worked hard, saved what I could, lived without excess, and observed. I saw the overdue notices, the worried glances, the offhand remarks about how tight things were, and each time I quietly stepped in. It began small, when Dad needed surgery and the insurance didn't stretch far enough. Just a few thousand short, they'd said, voices heavy with worry. My brothers and sisters had plenty of kind words but no real help to offer. I simply moved the money without fanfare. "It's okay, Dad. Just focus on healing." Both he and Mom expressed gratitude, but no one asked where the money came from or whether it strained me. It just appeared, like it always did. Then the issue became the family phone plan, missed payments, data overages, service interruptions. It was always something. I finally told Mom, "Let me handle it. I'll put it on my card. That way it's one bill to manage." And for everyone else, it worked beautifully. Each month, the charge came straight out of my account. I didn't resent it at first. It felt like the sensible thing to do, keeping everyone connected. But it didn't stop there. When the utility bills spiked, Mom would mention cutting back, worrying aloud. I'd quietly log in, pay what was owed, sometimes telling her, "I think I already covered that one, don't worry." Other times, I said nothing at all. I wasn't trying to play hero. I just didn't want them anxious or uncomfortable. I wanted peace. For them, not for me. Groceries, too, became part of the unspoken list as my parents grew older. Money had never come easily for them. I'd stop by the grocery store with their list in hand, slipping in a few extras, better cuts of meat, fresh fruit, the small comforts they'd never splurge on. At the checkout, I'd pay without hesitation. When Mom reached for her purse, I'd brush her off. "Don't worry about it, Mom, just a little something from me." She'd smile, call me sweet, and for a while it truly felt good, like love made visible, even unexpected expenses. A copay here, a new medication there. I covered them almost automatically. "Let me handle it, Dad," I'd say, and I always did. It wasn't about having extra. I earned an ordinary income, comfortable but modest. What set me apart was discipline, the habit of watching every dollar, keeping a budget, avoiding waste. They liked to joke that I was so good with money, as if it were just a personality quirk, not the result of early mornings, extra hours, and years of careful planning. They never saw the effort it took to make stability look easy. Quietly, I had become the invisible net holding them all up, the one paying for the comforts they took for granted while teasing me for being the cautious one. The irony cut deep, but I let it slide. I told myself this was what family meant, stepping in, keeping things steady even when the care wasn't returned. I bought their sense of security piece by piece, bill by bill, and no one ever stopped to consider what it truly cost me. The Thanksgiving exclusion didn't stay between Mom and me. It went public. Our family chat, which usually revolved around cat photos, weather updates, or half-formed plans, took on a new tone that week. A new thread appeared: Thanksgiving guest list. One by one, names filled the screen: Aunt Donna, Uncle Mark, Cousin Jenny and her kids, Cousin Michael, my brother Ben, my sister Sarah, and of course, Tyler. Everyone accounted for, except me. As I scrolled, the absence of my name hit hard. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. They meant it. They were truly leaving me out. The realization burned, a mix of hurt and disbelief that slowly cooled into something sharper, steadier. I decided to test the waters. "Hey everyone," I typed, keeping my words casual. "Looks like fun. Did I miss a note about the guest list?" The replies came fast. Mom was first, vague and polite. "Just making sure there's enough space for everyone." Then Tyler chimed in, his message landing like a smirk on the screen. "Limited seating, Hannah. Try Christmas if you behave." The words appeared on the screen like a slap, as if I were a child who needed to earn my place at the table. The chat fell silent for a beat, and then a gif of a turkey popped up. That was their answer. The message couldn't have been clearer. The sting went deeper than just this moment. It was the years of quiet jabs and backhanded remarks that had built up like sediment. At family dinners, if I mentioned work or shared something I was proud of, the focus would immediately shift to Tyler's latest promotion or Ben's newest business idea. Mom would smile and say, "Hannah's just so sensible," in that tone that felt more like unremarkable than steady. I remembered one afternoon shopping with Aunt Donna. At the register, the cashier commented politely on my sturdy, practical shoes. Before I could respond, Aunt Donna waved it off with a laugh. "Oh, Hannah's just a bit sensitive about success. She doesn't like attention. Keep it brief, dear." The cashier's smile faltered, and I stood there frozen, heat rising in my face. That moment stayed with me, another tiny public dismissal wrapped in politeness. They had no idea that while they treated me as the background character, I'd been the one quietly keeping everything from falling apart. Every joke, every overlooked kindness, every time they dismissed me in favor of someone louder or flashier, it carved away at something inside. They thought of me as harmless, compliant, the one who wouldn't push back, the one who would always endure in silence. And for so many years, I did exactly that. I bit my tongue through the jokes, the comparisons, the subtle exclusions. I convinced myself it didn't matter, that they showed love differently, that family loyalty meant staying even when it hurt. But the Thanksgiving ban changed everything. Seeing my name missing from that list wasn't just about dinner plans. It was about being erased. My worth, my belonging, dismissed in front of everyone, and sealed with laughter. As the holiday crept closer, that shame hardened into something unshakable, something determined. When Thanksgiving finally came, the silence in my apartment was deafening. Normally, I'd have been at Mom's by dawn, helping with pies or chopping vegetables, or at least on the road with a casserole warming in my passenger seat. Not this year. This time, it was just me, the walls, and the hum of a refrigerator that felt too loud. I told myself it was fine, just another Thursday. I vacuumed, tried to read, took a long walk through streets filled with the smell of roasting turkey and wood smoke that clung to the cold November air. Every vibration of my phone made my chest tighten, hope flickering in spite of everything. I knew it wouldn't be an invitation, but part of me still wished, just once, that someone would reach out. Around noon, my phone buzzed, and when I saw my mom's name on the screen, my stomach tightened. I hesitated before opening the message. "We saved you a plate, Hannah. Porch pickup if you want it." Porch pickup. Not "come join us," not "we miss you," not even "let's talk." Just leftovers left outside like a delivery nobody cared to bring in. It wasn't kindness. It was obligation disguised as generosity. A hollow gesture to ease their conscience without facing me. The ache that spread through my chest felt almost physical, heavy enough to press the air from my lungs. I could picture it all, the table gleaming under soft lights, Mom bustling around, Dad carving the turkey, Tyler holding court with his loud stories, Ben and Sarah laughing with their kids. A complete happy family tableau, just minus me. By late afternoon, I found myself reaching for my keys. I told myself I only wanted to see it with my own eyes, to give shape to the hurt. I drove slowly down their street. Every window glowed warm and full of life, the sound of laughter spilling faintly into the cold air. Cars lined the curb, all familiar. And there it was, just as she'd said, a single foil-covered plate on the porch, small and lonely in the fading light. A neighbor's orange cat prowled close, tail flicking as it sniffed at the edge, curious. It looked ready to tear it open. Something inside me hardened then. The sadness didn't vanish, but it transformed into clarity, into resolve. It wasn't about the meal or the apology anymore. It was about what that plate represented. My place, left out in the cold, fit for stray animals. I kept driving. I didn't slow down. The plate, the laughter, the house, they all receded in my mirror, and I let them. Whatever was inside that foil wasn't mine anymore, and maybe it never had been. Nothing about that day, or that family, felt like mine anymore. As I pulled farther from their street, the tears came quietly, not out of rage, but from something far deeper. They were the kind of tears that came from final understanding. Yet beneath that grief, something else began to take root, a steady, unmistakable strength. They had drawn their line, and now it was my turn. The ache inside me hardened into resolve, the kind that feels like the start of a new chapter. In the days that followed, everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar. The memory of that foil-covered plate, the cat nosing at it, and their thoughtless laughter kept replaying in my mind. It sat there, festering, a reminder of just how disposable I had become in their eyes. I went to work, smiled when I needed to, but inside I felt hollowed out, stripped down to something raw and watchful, like skin toughening into scar tissue. Then, inevitably, the phone calls began. Tyler was the first. His voice was all sugary ease, the kind of tone he used when he wanted something. "Hey, Hannah, how are you? Quick favor." I could already hear the setup coming. "What is it, Tyler?" I asked flatly. He chuckled, casual as ever. "So, Jen's birthday is next week, and I really want to get her something nice. But my last check was a little short. Think you could lend me, like, $600? I'll pay you back next month. Promise." $600 for his girlfriend's present, from the same cousin who'd laughed about me being banned from Thanksgiving. The nerve of it almost made me laugh. "Family takes care of family," he added smoothly, like that old refrain was still a key that could open me up. Once it would have, but now it just sounded like a trick, a line rehearsed too many times. Before I could even decide how to respond, another call came through. Dad. His voice was gentle, practiced. Hannah, sweetheart, your mom and I could use a bit of help. The car needs work, and the water heater's acting up again. We're short on the down payment for a replacement. Think you could send over $300 just to hold it? $300 here, $600 there. $900 in total. Another round of quiet rescue work expected without hesitation. For years, I'd filled those gaps automatically, no questions asked. But this time, the expectation felt heavier, more obvious. I told them both I'd see what I could do, then ended the calls. No promises, no instant transfer. Just silence on my end for once. My hands trembled, not with rage, but with a deep, exhausted kind of disbelief. I went into my little office, the corner of my apartment I'd made my sanctuary, and opened my laptop. The screen's glow felt harsh in the dim room. I signed into my bank account and started scrolling, line after line, year after year, a quiet history of giving that no one had ever noticed. Mortgage payments covered when they were short, a few thousand here, another few there, just to keep things from collapsing. Grocery stores, so many trips labeled as just my treat. Co-pays, medications, dentist visits. Then the utilities, the endless cycle of power, gas, water, phone bills, all siphoned from my account without complaint. Venmo transfers to Tyler with casual notes. Rent, just a bit short this month, promise I'll pay you back. Each one a tiny withdrawal, not just from my balance, but from my patience. There were car repairs I'd quietly paid for, appliances I'd replaced before anyone even asked, and those loans that were really just gifts in disguise, never repaid, never even mentioned again. As I scrolled, the numbers kept stacking higher, almost surreal in their total. Years of silent generosity had turned into a mountain of proof. Proof that while they mocked me for being sensible, I had been the one quietly keeping everyone else afloat. It wasn't hundreds anymore, it was thousands, tens of thousands gone over the years. Money I had worked for, saved carefully, guarded like a promise to my future. Not for extravagance, but for stability, for peace of mind. And yet, I had funneled it all into their lives without a murmur, without expecting repayment, only perhaps a little respect, maybe even gratitude. But what had I received instead? Exclusion, mockery, a public shaming dressed as family tradition, the image of that plate left on the porch, fit for a stray cat, burned behind my eyes. And now, after all that, they were still asking for more, still calling it love, still saying, family takes care of each other. I stared at the screen, at the endless list of transactions that traced my quiet devotion, each one proof of their comfort and my depletion. The realization tightened in my chest, cold, sharp, final. The resolve that had begun on Thanksgiving crystallized into something absolute. I drew in a breath that felt heavier than any before. The words slipped out, barely audible, but inside they thundered, not anymore. They were soft, but they carried the full weight of every sacrifice I'd made, every slight I'd endured, every time I'd been taken for granted. This wasn't just about saying no. It was the beginning of reclaiming everything they'd taught me to give away. It felt like the closing of a chapter, not just any chapter, but the end of their long reign of dependency and the quiet beginning of my own independence. I shut the laptop, watching the faint glow of the screen reflect the steadiness in my eyes. The breaking point had arrived, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. The choice was made, but choices mean nothing without action. For years, my actions had been silent, invisible money transfers, quiet fixes, unspoken rescues. Now, they needed to become visible, concrete, undeniable. It wasn't enough to simply refuse. I had to prove why, not to them, but to myself. I needed to see, in black and white, the full cost of my loyalty. So I reached out to Clara Mitchell. She wasn't family, she was a mentor, my first real boss years ago. A sharp, pragmatic woman in her 50s, with a mind like a scalpel, and a kind of clarity I had always admired. She'd taught me everything I knew about boundaries, negotiation, and valuing my own time. I'd never told her the whole truth about my family's dependence on me, mostly out of embarrassment, but now I needed her precision. We met at a small cafe. I sat across from her, hands wrapped around a mug, and told her everything. The endless bills, the constant requests, the Thanksgiving ban, even the plate left out for me like a token gesture. I expected her to scold me, or worse, to pity me. Instead, she just listened quietly, her sharp eyes never wavering. When I finally stopped, she took a long, thoughtful sip of coffee and said evenly, "Hannah, they're not just spending your money, they're spending your future. Every dollar you give them is one you don't invest in yourself." Then she leaned in, voice lowering just slightly. "You need to perform a financial exorcism. Pull every thread of their dependence out of your life. But first, you have to find the ghost and count it." That was when the idea for the binder took shape. It wouldn't just be a collection of receipts, it would be a complete, undeniable record of my quiet generosity. A ledger of everything I had carried alone. That night, I bought a thick 3-ring binder, a stack of plastic sleeves, and a set of highlighters in 5 colors. My mission had begun. For the next 2 weeks, my apartment transformed into a command center of financial excavation. I printed years of statements, bank records, credit cards, Venmo logs, and laid them out like evidence, each page telling the story of what it had really cost to be their responsible one. At first, the sight of it all nearly crushed me, a mountain of papers reflecting years of obligations I had quietly shouldered. But once I began sorting, that chaos started to take shape, and with it came a cold, undeniable understanding. I made tabs for everything: mortgage assistance, utilities, groceries, medical, auto, and the one that hurt most to label, personal loans, T-Cole, for Tyler. Every page told its own story. One transfer stood out: $1,500 sent to my parents 3 years ago. I could still hear my dad's strained voice from that day, panicked over an overdue property tax bill they'd forgotten to pay. Without a second thought, I had moved the money from my savings, funds I'd been setting aside for a home of my own. I told him not to worry, that I was glad to help. Now, staring at that confirmation email, a bitter thought surfaced. My name wasn't anywhere on the deed to the house I'd helped preserve. Then came the phone plan. 6 solid years of payments, over $200 every month. I did the math. More than $14,000 spent, so no one else would have to deal with the hassle. $14,000 to keep them connected. And for what? For Tyler to mock me over speakerphone like it was all a joke. The grocery section was a forest of crumpled receipts from every major supermarket nearby. I had kept them out of habit, for budgeting, but now they became evidence. $150 here, $200 there, little acts of kindness that had accumulated into a staggering sum. I remembered Mom gushing over the dessert Tyler's girlfriend brought once, while my own 3 full bags of essentials sat ignored on the counter. The most infuriating pile was Tyler's. His Venmo history read like a running tab at a bar I never agreed to open. Beer money, gas, concert tickets, help a bro out. Then the bigger ones, $500, rent, $300, car trouble. Each message had that same breezy entitlement, as though borrowing hundreds of dollars was as trivial as asking for a pen, and every time I had agreed. Because that's what family does, right? As I slid each sheet into a plastic sleeve, the binder thickened, heavy and solid in my hands. With every page I added, the weight I had carried for years, all that unspoken resentment and fatigue, was no longer invisible. It had form now, proof, and it was finally mine. It was no longer just a vague ache in my chest. It was documented, cataloged, proven. Every dollar, every favor, every quiet act of sacrifice was now there in black and white. This wasn't emotion anymore. It was evidence. Clara stopped by one evening to see what I'd done. She turned the pages slowly, eyes steady, her expression giving nothing away. "This is impressive, Hannah," she said finally, tapping one of the highlighted statements. "But don't lose sight of the goal. This isn't about punishing them. It's about freeing you. This binder is your way out." We sat together at my small kitchen table, the binder between us like a weapon being assembled. We made a list of every shared bill, every automatic withdrawal, every hidden tie that still bound me to them. We researched how to transfer phone plans, drafted scripts for calling the mortgage company, outlined every step. Clara worked like a strategist, turning my grief into a blueprint for independence. "When you start cutting them off," she warned, "they'll panic. They'll guilt you. They'll get angry. They'll use every line that's ever worked before. You have to expect it and stay firm." I looked at the thick binder resting on the table. It was heavy with years of my giving, my patience, my pain, but in that weight I felt something solid and empowering. It was my truth, my defense, my armor. On the spine, in simple block letters, I had written, "This is what I did for you, and this is what I won't do anymore." The first Monday of December became my personal Independence Day. I took time off work, telling my boss I had personal business to handle, which, in its own way, was true. I was reclaiming ownership of my life. That morning, I brewed the strongest coffee I could stand, sat at my desk, and opened the binder beside my checklist. The first call was to the mortgage company, the hardest one to make. My pulse pounded as I explained I wanted to remove my account from the property tax autopay I had been covering for years. I wasn't listed on the loan, but my bank details were tied to the payments I had quietly taken over long ago. After navigating the endless phone prompts, I finally reached a representative. My voice trembled only slightly. "Yes, I'd like to remove my autopay authorization for property taxes on this account," I said, reading the numbers carefully. The woman on the line was calm and courteous. "Of course, ma'am. May I ask why you're canceling?" I hesitated just long enough to breathe in before answering. "Because I will no longer be contributing to this payment. Please make sure all future bills go directly to the homeowners on record." There was a brief silence, the sound of typing, then her reply came. "All set. It's done." Just like that, years of quiet obligation ended with a single keystroke. And the strangest thing was, the world didn't fall apart. It was still standing, and for the first time, so was I. "You'll receive an email confirmation." The woman's voice was calm, routine. I thanked her, hung up, and exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. One thread severed. Moments later, the email arrived. Autopay cancellation confirmed. A simple digital receipt, yet it felt monumental, like a birth certificate for the new life I was stepping into. The next task was the family phone plan. Trickier, more entangled, it required an in-person visit. I walked into the provider's store, clutching my account information, nerves steady but taut. The young associate greeted me with a polite smile as I explained that I needed to move my line to a separate individual plan and transfer ownership of the remaining lines to my mother. He tapped briskly on his tablet. "Okay, so you'll be releasing the other 4 lines. The new account holder will be responsible for the full monthly bill starting next cycle." "That's correct," I said. He handed me the stylus, and I signed the digital form. As I touched the screen, I thought of all the years those phones had carried their voices, their arguments, their laughter, every bite of it paid for by me. No more. I walked out with a new SIM card, a new account number, and a quiet thrill humming beneath my ribs. For the first time in 6 years, my phone was mine and mine alone. Back home, I moved to the digital front, a full-scale purge. I logged into my parents' Amazon account and removed my credit card. The order history flashed before me. Dad's coffee, Mom's vitamins, Tyler's overpriced protein powder. All of it charged to me. Delete. Then came the streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Max. My card was the default payment on every one. I opened each account, navigated to payment settings, and stripped my information clean. One by one, the screens updated. Payment method required. Next, I cleared the grocery delivery app, the pharmacy, the subscription box they'd once joked I was so generous for keeping active. With every click, I erased myself from their convenience, becoming a ghost, undoing years of quiet servitude. And with every deletion, I felt lighter, as if the binder's weight was shifting off my shoulders and settling into the paper where it belonged. By noon, it was over. Every connection, every autopay, every silent tie, gone. I spent the rest of the day in stillness. My phone was off, a rare luxury. I read, listened to music, let the quiet fill the space like sunlight through a clean window. It wasn't peace exactly, more like the deep calm that comes before thunder. And right on cue, the storm announced itself that Wednesday. A single text from Sarah blinked onto my screen when I turned the phone back on. "Hey, is Netflix down? It's asking for a credit card." I stared at Sarah's text for a long moment, then set the phone face down on the table. No reply, just quiet. By Thursday, the confusion had begun to ripple outward. A group message appeared from Mom to me, Ben, and Sarah. Did someone change the phone plan? I just got an email saying I'm the new account holder, and the bill is over $200. Hannah, did you do this? Ben responded first, the eternal peacemaker. Must be some kind of mistake, Mom. Hannah always takes care of that stuff. I didn't answer. Friday brought the first wave of calls. Dad's number lit up my screen. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was tight, bewildered. "Hannah, the pharmacy said our card didn't go through for Mom's prescription. I thought you had it saved on file." Then Tyler's turn, angrier, sharper. "What the hell, Hannah? My phone's about to get shut off. Mom said you canceled the plan. You can't just do that." I listened once, then deleted it. By Sunday, the panic had fully set in. The small comforts they'd come to rely on had vanished. The seamless payments, the automatic renewals, the invisible rescues. The world they'd lived in, cushioned by my quiet support, was beginning to collapse. For the first time, they were carrying their own weight. The messages came fast now, confusion, guilt trips, bursts of blame. I ignored them all. I was a blank wall, an unanswered call, a gray bubble that stayed unread. Every notification that blinked on my phone felt like another shackle snapping loose. The silence I gave them was the clearest message I'd ever sent. On Tuesday, my phone rang again. It was Mom. Her voice sounded different this time, stripped of authority, thinner somehow. "Hannah, please, just come over. We need to talk about this. Your father's a wreck." The word please was the turning point, not a command, a plea. I knew this was it. The binder rode in the passenger seat beside me as I drove over, its weight steady and reassuring. Walking through the front door felt like stepping into the past and the reckoning all at once. The air was thick, charged. My parents sat at the kitchen table, the same one where we'd once celebrated birthdays and planned holidays. But now it felt like a tribunal. Tyler was there too, leaning back in his chair, arms folded, anger written all over him. I didn't bother with greetings. I set the binder down in the center of the table with a solid, deliberate thud. The sound echoed through the room. Dad's eyes darted to it. "What is this?" he asked, voice hoarse. I met his gaze evenly. "This is the conversation." Then I flipped the binder open to the first tab. "You wanted to know why? This is why." "Mortgage assistance," I said, turning the binder toward my father so he could see. The pages gleamed under the kitchen light, each one stamped with transaction dates and confirmation numbers, the key details glowing in yellow highlighter. 3 years ago," I began evenly, "you called me terrified about losing the house over a property tax bill." I covered it. $500, I tapped another page. "The year after, you were short 3 mortgage payments. I filled that gap too. That's $2,000 more. And this," my finger rested on a printed invoice, "is the full payment for the new water heater I bought you last winter, not the $300 deposit you just asked for 2 weeks ago." Dad stared down at the papers, his face drained of color, his mouth slightly open. He looked smaller somehow, older. Mom sat rigid beside him, hands twisting in her lap, her lips pressed into a thin, guilty line. I flipped to the next tab. Medical. I slid a sheet across the table. This is your surgery copay, Dad. The part insurance didn't handle. This one is for Mom's dental work. And these, I fanned out a few more pages, are every single prescription copay I've covered for the past 4 years. Tyler let out a sharp laugh. Oh, come on. You're counting prescription copays now? I met his eyes, my voice ice cold. Let's talk about what I'm counting for you, Tyler. I turned to the thickest section of the binder, the tab labeled Personal Loans, T. Cole, and pushed a stack of printed Venmo transactions toward him, each line blazed with yellow highlighter, a litany of casual requests. $600 for rent, I said. $400 for a security deposit on an apartment you didn't even stay in half a year. $50 here, $100 there. What were those for? Concert tickets, dates, beer runs? My hand moved to the final line. And this last one, $600 for your girlfriend's birthday. You sent that request the same week you laughed about me eating leftovers in the garage. Color surged into his face. I was going to pay you back, he muttered. No, I said softly, the words cutting like glass. You weren't. You've never paid me back. Not once. Because to you, this isn't a loan. It's your allowance. An allowance you think you deserve just for existing in a family that decided I wasn't worth sitting at their table. I looked back at my parents, my voice steady but heavy with everything I'd held for years. You banned me from Thanksgiving. You let him mock me. You left a plate on the porch like I was a stray animal. And still, I paid. I paid your bills. I bought your groceries. I covered your bills. I funded the comfort you all took for granted while you whispered that I was uptight, stingy, or just not as successful as the rest of you. I leaned forward, pressing both palms flat against the table. I'm done, I said, each word deliberate, heavy. I'm done being your bank. I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being the quiet, sensible daughter who fixes everything while you take and take. Mom's voice finally broke through, thin and trembling. Hannah, this is a betrayal. We're your family. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. A betrayal? My voice rose, steady but edged with years of swallowed pain. A betrayal is when your parents stand by while your cousin mocks you. A betrayal is being told you're banned from your own family holiday. A betrayal is realizing you were never seen as a daughter, only as a resource. I pushed back from the table, the chair scraping hard against the floor. The confrontation was over. I had given them the truth, every piece of it, and now there was nothing left to say. Their faces, pale, stunned, speechless, were the only response I needed. For the first time, they were seeing me not as the quiet provider or the family accountant, but as a person, a woman who had finally reached her limit. I turned, walked out, and pulled the front door closed behind me. The sound of the latch clicking into place felt like a verdict being sealed. In the car, I waited for the emotions to rush in, the anger, the grief, the guilt, but instead, there was stillness. Not the hollow silence that had filled my apartment on Thanksgiving, but something deeper and steadier. This silence belonged to me. It was the sound of peace reclaimed. The fallout came, just as Clara had said it would. The first wave hit that night, Tyler's fury. Text after text buzzed through, full of venom. You're a monster, Hannah. You can't just abandon them like this. You think you're better than us with your stupid binder. I'm telling everyone what you did. I read them, then I deleted them. No replies, no explanations. His words felt small, like the tantrum of a child realizing the candy jar was empty. Then came the guilt, my mother's weapon of choice. Long voicemails filled with quivering emotion. Hannah, we don't know what we're going to do. The mortgage payment is due. Your father's not sleeping. He's having chest pains. Please, sweetheart, just call us back. I listened to the first few, then stopped playing them altogether. Every tear, every sigh was a rope they were trying to throw around me, hoping I'd step back into the same old pattern. But I wasn't the one who was panicking anymore. The silence, once their punishment, had become my boundary, and this time I wasn't breaking it. How could you be so cruel? After everything we've done for you? Raising you? This isn't the daughter I raised. Mom's voice on that voicemail trembled with all the right notes of guilt and heartbreak. And then came the inevitable closer. Your father's having chest pains. A line carefully crafted to dig into my oldest reflexes: fear, duty, the need to fix things. The old me would have folded in an instant. I would have called back, soothed her, apologized, sent money, and tried to make everything right again. But the new me simply listened, recognized the manipulation for what it was, and pressed delete. It wasn't easy. Every instinct I'd been conditioned to obey for 27 years screamed at me to mend, to protect, to help. But I stayed still. I didn't call. A week went by before Dad reached out. His voice on the voicemail was stripped of anger, softer, almost defeated. "Hannah, it's Dad. Call me. We need to figure this out." It was the closest thing to an admission of struggle I'd ever heard from him. But even that was a hook, another attempt to pull me back into my old role as their fixer. I didn't return the call. My words at that kitchen table had been my last. Mom's accusation of betrayal. Tyler's outraged, "You can't just leave them like this." And my reply, calm, final, still echoed in my mind. "I'm leaving you like adults, which you are." That sentence became my anchor. I wasn't abandoning them. I was letting them face the results of their own decisions, their spending, their carelessness, their dependence. I was learning that real help isn't rescuing someone over and over. It's giving them the hard gift of accountability. So I turned my attention inward. I worked. I met friends. I started browsing condo listings, finally seeing a future that belonged only to me. My savings growing instead of disappearing into someone else's crisis. The silence between us wasn't a void anymore. It was protection, a line they couldn't cross with guilt or anger. Weeks slipped by. The fury subsided first, then the pleading. The voicemails grew shorter, then stopped. For the first time, they were living their lives without my invisible scaffolding, and I was living mine without their weight on my shoulders. I didn't know how they were managing, and for once, I didn't feel responsible for finding out. The freedom in that was staggering. Then, about a month later, just before Christmas, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hannah." Dad's voice was quiet, tentative. "Hi, Dad." There was a long, uneven breath on the other end. "Your mother and we went to a financial advisor," he said slowly. Tyler moved out. "He's got a second job now," Dad said quietly. I didn't answer. I just listened. He took a shaky breath. "I was going through some old papers," he went on, voice thick with something between shame and regret. "Found receipts for things I didn't even remember you paying for. The roof repair, my car transmission." Another pause, heavier this time. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I'm sorry for making you feel like a purse. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was real. The first genuine apology I'd heard from him in years." "Thank you for saying that, Dad," I replied, softly but firmly. We didn't talk about Christmas. It was too soon, too fragile. The space between us was still raw, but there was a small glimmer in it, a faint light in the crack of a long-closed door. By the start of the new year, that light had turned into motion. I bought my condo, modest, bright, entirely mine. Every piece of furniture, every payment felt like proof of what I'd built on my own terms. No invisible strings, no unspoken debts, just freedom. On my laptop, I created a new folder called Plans. Inside were spreadsheets for my retirement savings, a travel fund, and future investments. Blueprints not for survival, but for growth. It was the first digital space dedicated entirely to me. And on my refrigerator, a single sticky note in thick black marker read, "No is a complete sentence," a reminder that boundaries are not cruelty. They are care turned inward. Thanksgiving will never be the same. Maybe someday we'll rebuild something resembling a family, one grounded in respect instead of expectation. Or maybe we won't. For the first time, that uncertainty doesn't frighten me. Now, standing in my own kitchen, in a home paid for by no one but me, I feel light, not lonely, but liberated. My silence, once mistaken for weakness, has become my greatest strength. My boundaries have become the purest expression of love I've ever learned, love for myself. Have you ever been the one your family leaned on until you broke? Tell me your story in the comments, and remember to like, share, and subscribe for more true tales of betrayal, resilience, and the power that comes when silence finally becomes strength.